Hey there, I'm Lily. At Revenge Crown, we serve up stories you won't be able to stop watching. If that's your vibe, hit subscribe, and let's dive in. By 10 in the morning, the mimosas were already circulating. My mom had gone all out, setting the table with her special Easter china, the soft pink plates trimmed in gold that only see daylight once a year. Crystal vases overflowed with fresh lilies. Deviled eggs were lined up with military precision. The whole buffet looked straight out of a glossy Southern living spread. I was pouring myself a glass of orange juice when Aunt Patricia walked in. Patricia is my dad's older sister, a Chicago patent attorney who visits twice a year armed with top-shelf wine and sharp questions. She has that clipped, efficient energy of someone who bills in 6-minute increments and doesn't entertain small talk. "Claire," she greeted, kissing my mom's cheek and handing over champagne. "The house looks lovely. New mirror in the entryway. Home goods," Mom said proudly. 60% off. Meanwhile, my sister Jessica was in the living room, flashing her phone at anyone willing to look. $3,847, she announced. Tax refund. I'm using it for a girls' trip to Nashville. We found the cutest Airbnb. I slipped into the dining room and took my usual seat at the far end of the table, the invisible one. The place where I could eat quietly while everyone else performed their predictable family parts. Jessica, 28, married to a dentist, 2 kids, suburban house with a 3-car garage, was the star. She worked 3 days a week as a hygienist at her husband's practice and loved talking about balance and fulfillment. I was 32, single, no kids, living alone in what Mom liked to call that gloomy downtown apartment. I'm a software developer, something my parents have never quite grasped. "What do you even do?" Dad would ask. "Write code." "For what?" "Apps. Security systems. Databases." He'd check out halfway through. Soon the table filled. Relatives shoulder to shoulder, ham and potato salad passed around, my grandmother in her Sunday hat, Brad loudly discussing mortgage rates. Patricia ended up across from me, giving a small nod. Over the years, we'd had exactly 4 real conversations, mostly about intellectual property, back when I filed my first software patent at 23. Jessica was still going on about Nashville. Hot tub on the balcony. Right downtown. "We're doing the Pedal Tavern." "With your refund?" someone asked. "Part of it. Brad's covering the rest." She glanced at me. "Some people understand how to keep a marriage happy." I buttered my roll and kept quiet. Brad chuckled. "Jess works hard." 3 days a week, I said softly. Her smile tightened. "What was that?" "Nothing." "No. Say it." "I just said you work 3 days a week." "That's fine, but it's not exactly." "Not exactly what? A real job? Like whatever you do hiding behind your laptop?" Her voice climbed. "At least I have a family. What do you contribute besides collecting a paycheck?" "Jessica," Mom warned. "She sits there judging everyone." That's when Patricia gently placed her fork on her plate. The sound sliced through the noise. "Claire," she said evenly, projecting just enough for everyone to hear, "I meant to ask, did that $1.9 million royalty payment go through?" The room froze. Jessica's mouth stayed open mid-rant. Brad's fork clinked against porcelain. Mom drained of color. Dad coughed into his mimosa. Every face turned toward me. "Patricia," Dad managed. "What payment?" I calmly spread butter across my toast, edge to edge. Patricia leaned back casually. "The licensing deal Claire signed in February. Her encryption algorithm. I negotiated the contract." A beat. I assumed she'd mentioned it. Mom's hand shook. "Claire, what is she talking about?" I took a slow bite before answering. "I licensed software I built to a cybersecurity firm," I said. They're paying royalties. An initial $1.9 million, Patricia clarified, plus projected quarterly royalties between 4 and 600,000 annually for the next 7 years. The silence pressed in. Jessica finally sputtered, "That's impossible. You work for some tiny tech company." "I work for myself," I said calmly. "I left that company 3 years ago," I said evenly. "I've been working independently since then. Exactly what Dad always insisted I should do, designing proprietary encryption systems, building security frameworks for banks, creating database infrastructures. I have 12 corporate clients and 3 active licensing contracts." My mother shot to her feet so fast her chair scraped loudly across the floor. 3 years? You've been self-employed for 3 years and never said a word. You never asked. Don't you dare turn this around. Dad's face was flushed deep red. We're your parents. You don't just keep something like that from us. Keep. I placed my toast down carefully. I didn't keep anything. No one ever asked what I actually do. No one asked how I support myself. No one asked about my life beyond whether I was dating. That's not fair, Mom insisted. We ask about you. You ask when I'm going to settle down. You ask why I'm not more like Jessica. You've never once asked about my work. Across from me, Aunt Patricia observed the scene like she was studying a complex case. Quiet, analytical, detached. Jessica's voice trembled. "So you've had millions and you're still living in that depressing apartment? Driving that old Honda?" "I like my apartment," I replied calmly. "And my car works perfectly." "You let us think you were broke." She stood abruptly. "Mom and Dad have worried about you for years." "I never said I was struggling. You assumed. Because you dress like a grad student." She gestured wildly at my sweater and jeans. "You don't take flashy vacations. You don't buy designer bags. What were we supposed to think? That maybe I don't measure success by appearances," I said. Brad jumped in. "If I had that kind of money, I'd upgrade everything." I cut in. "Bigger house, newer car, Instagram posts? That's the difference between us. I don't need applause." "You're twisting this," Dad warned. "Why didn't you tell us?" I met his eyes. "Because I knew this exact reaction would happen." "What reaction?" "This sudden interest. The second real money is mentioned, everyone cares. Jessica's tax refund stops being impressive. My job becomes legitimate because it has dollar signs attached." Mom wiped at her tears. "That's not true. Name one time in 5 years someone asked how my projects were going." No one spoke. "I've attended 47 family events since I left my old job. Birthdays, holidays, cookouts. Not once did anyone ask about my work. But Jessica talks about her part-time schedule every gathering, and everyone listens like it's groundbreaking." "She has children," Mom argued. "She's juggling responsibilities." "So am I," I said. 12 clients. 3 licensing agreements. But that doesn't count because I don't have kids." Grandma's voice carried quietly from the end of the table. "How long have you been earning like this?" 3 years. "And in that time, have your parents asked you for money?" "No. Because they believed you had none," Grandma replied calmly. "Meanwhile," she turned toward Jessica, "how much have you borrowed?" Jessica went pale. Brad answered under his breath, 45,000. Down payment, wedding, some other expenses. 45,000, Grandma repeated. She looked at my parents. "And you never thought Claire might be in a position to help?" "She never offered," Mom said weakly. We never told her we needed help, Dad snapped, then seemed to realize what he'd admitted. I folded my hands. So now that you know I'm not struggling, what changes? The question lingered. Jessica sank back into her chair. This is wrong. We're family. Family supports each other. You've been sitting on millions while while they funded your wedding, your house, daycare. I interrupted. You needed help. I needed help too. My voice finally sharpened. When I was 23 launching my business, I had $600 left and rent due. I worked 70-hour weeks trying to build something real. No one asked how I was doing. No one offered help. Because all resources were going to Jessica. Mom sobbed openly now. We didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know, I said. You had already decided who I was, the struggling, disappointing daughter. And I let you believe it because correcting you required attention I was never going to get. The room went quiet. Aunt Patricia cleared her throat. For whatever it's worth, Patricia said calmly, Claire came to me when she was 24 asking about patent filings, licensing structures, and contract terms. I offered guidance where I could. Over the past 8 years, I've watched her build something extremely impressive. 8 years. Dad stared at me like he didn't recognize me. You've been working toward this for 8 years? I filed my first patent at 24, I explained. It took 3 years to develop the technology, 2 years for approval, and another 3 to secure the right buyer. Until the licensing deals closed, I survived on consulting gigs and short-term contracts. And you never thought to tell us? Mom asked, hurt in her voice. I did tell you. I held her gaze. When I was 26, I mentioned developing a security algorithm. You smiled and started talking about Jessica's pregnancy. At 27, I told you I'd filed a patent. Dad joked about whether it would magically make me rich. At 29, I said I was negotiating licensing terms. You asked when I was going to prioritize finding a husband. The silence that followed was heavy. I stopped bringing it up, I said quietly, because no one was actually listening. Brad broke in. So what now? You're just keeping everything for yourself? Not helping your family? I turned to him slowly. Help the family? The same family that's treated me like a cautionary tale for 10 years? The one that forgot my birthday last year? The one that stopped inviting me to the kids' parties because there wasn't space? Claire, Jessica tried. No, I rose from my chair and folded my napkin neatly. I'm finished chasing approval from people who decided long ago I wasn't worth noticing. You can't leave, Mom cried. It's Easter. Watch me. I grabbed my purse. Patricia wore a faint, unreadable smile. Whether she'd miscalculated or strategically detonated the truth, I didn't know. Either way, I was grateful. Claire, Dad said, stepping into my path, don't walk away over money. I'm not leaving because of money, I replied. I'm leaving because money is suddenly the only reason I matter. 4 years, I wasn't worth your curiosity. Now I'm worth $1.9 million, and that changed everything. That's not fair. Then prove it, I said. Name one time this year you asked how I was doing. About my work. My life. Anything. He couldn't. I headed for the door. Claire. Jessica hurried after me. We're sisters. You can't just cut us off. I paused and faced her. When's my birthday? She blinked. What? The date, Jess. It's October. No, November. September 14th, I said softly. I've celebrated yours every single year. You don't even know the month of mine. Her expression collapsed. That's not fair. I'm busy. I have kids. I know, I said, no longer angry, just exhausted. Everyone's busy. Too busy for me, at least. I stepped outside into the bright Easter morning. Behind me, my mother cried, my father called my name, Jessica accused me of being selfish. I got into my old Civic, the one I'd paid for outright years ago, and drove away. 3 months later, I was working from the home office in the house I'd purchased outright in Montrose when Patricia called. Your mother's been emailing me, she said immediately. She wants me to convince you to reconcile. The family would like to apologize. I continued scanning lines of code. And your advice? I suspect you already know, she said. But professionally speaking, when people apologize only after realizing what they've lost, they're grieving access, not regretting behavior. That's harsh. That's experience. She paused. Jessica's husband apparently lost his dental practice. Financial mismanagement. They're in serious debt. I closed my laptop. How serious? She didn't say. But significant. And now they want to repair the relationship. Yes. I looked out at the landscaped garden outside my window. Native plants, a small fountain, sunlight filtering through an oak tree. Tell my mother I appreciate her message, I said. But I'm not interested. Understood. Patricia hesitated. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Not just the money, the discipline, the vision. You built all of it without encouragement, without praise. That takes strength. After we ended the call, I reopened my laptop. I had a client presentation in 2 days, a licensing negotiation next week, and a conference invite to consider. My life was steady, meaningful, mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Please call. We can fix this. You're still our daughter. I deleted it. Then I went back to work.